Good evening, everybody. It's your boy Micro. We're looking at SQQQ right now. We're starting off with it at least. We had some ideas from last week hit for the downside and some for the upside. Obviously, the market was in a bigger downtrend, I would say, this past week. It was a relatively weird week. But for the second week in a row, S&P 500 ended up closing red, which is honestly a pretty good sign for a healthy pullback, in my opinion. I definitely think that we could see a little bit lower before we do end up seeing a push back up. Now, starting out with SQQQ, again, this is just the inverse of tech, inverse of QQQ. You could see that this long-term downtrend, we ended up breaking out of it, quote unquote, breaking out of it, right? Um, Again, I don't really like to do a bunch of TA and stuff like that when it comes to this specific name, only because there's not really strong support slash resistance, any of that, in my opinion. But nonetheless, this gives us that general outlook on the market, right? So we ended up getting this, again, quote unquote, breakout on SQQQ. And this breakout ended up taking the market a little bit lower, especially on Friday, right? So this is what we ended up getting from SQQQ was a low down here of 1028 on March 8th. And then, the week after, we ended up seeing it go all the way up to 1135. So we got about a dollar move, which is about a 10% move for this name. So it's a pretty big jump in terms of percentages. So continue to look out for higher breakouts, quote unquote, for this name, as we can definitely see lower in the market, right? So just again, keep this in mind. I like to start out with this just to give you a general overview of what the market currently looks like, what specific names in tech currently look like Nvidia, Microsoft, Facebook, etc. So yeah, that's kind of all that I have for SQQQ. So last week there was a name that I was specifically looking out for, and it was Microsoft. With price target upgrades and more, obviously, AI shit, we're definitely going to see bigger moves within this stock, right? So I believe we were down, yeah. So we were around this area last week, and a break of this, what was it? This 416.78 is inevitably what ended up sending us, and then obviously this break of this 422.30 ended up sending us to all-time highs, right? With that being said, we ended up actually coming down very, very, very hard on Friday. So on Friday, we saw about what did we open at? We opened about here, 427, 428, and we ended up seeing 412. So a very, very, big drop, a lot of profit taking. Again, it was just the overall trend of the market this current day on Friday. Now, what I would be wanting to look for is a hold at these specific levels, right? Around this 415, 410 area, 412 area even is really what I'm looking for to hold. If not, we end up seeing that 407 again, right? And this 407 needs to hold also, unless we want to see lower into the 400, possibly 398, 397 level, just as we discussed last week. So if we end up breaking that, I'd like to see this 393, as I just believe that this is a good point of contention, as you have, a lot of support here. At one point was resistance, right? So this level specifically, 394, or even lower, 393.70, call it 394, is inevitably what should hold if we end up breaking down below that 400. Now, if we end up holding at this 412 area, 410 area, then I'd love to see for a pushback up to into this 420 area, right? This 420 area holding should continuously, push us higher and give us all-time highs. But that only happens if we end up closing above, 423. Closing above 423 is going to be a massive thing for Microsoft, as this level, again, big rejection, right? Then we had some support, quote unquote support. It didn't really hold as it was retested. But breaking up from this level, we ended up seeing a we ended up seeing a $6-7 move to the upside, 6-7 point move to the upside. Breaking below this level, however, right here was a 10-point move to the downside. So this level right here, 422.31, is definitely going to be a big point of contention for us moving forward. Again, if we end up closing above that, we close above 423. I definitely do think that we continue to see all-time highs. So that's kind of just what I'm looking for on Microsoft. 412, 410 to hold. If these levels hold, then I think that we can continue into this 420 area, into this 423 area, 423 into continuous all-time highs. That's my opinion. For the downside, if that 410, 412, 410 breaks, I'd love to see this 407 back in play again. Possibly this 400 level. And then after this 400 level, I'd like to see this 397 into this 393.72. Again, just call it 394. So that's really all that I'm looking for on Microsoft. So as we continue to get all-time highs in QQQ and SPY both, we're also getting all-time highs again in a lot of these big tech names, right? Meta being one of those names. So with that being said, all-time high after all-time high broken, right? Ever since the beginning of February, we've just been continuously ripping. We ended up getting some pretty good downside from this 525 level all the way down to this, what is this? This 476 level. This 476 ended up taking us back into this 503 level. This 503 level ended up being our biggest point of rejection, right? And why was that? Well, obviously, as you can see here, at one point it was our big point of rejection. When we ended up blowing through it, we ended up reaching all-time highs. When we came back down, we came back down hard, retested it, and then we ended up coming back down hard yet again. So, moving forward, I definitely think that this 488.39 level, call it 490, is definitely going to be a bigger level for us to break. If we want to continue to go up, then we need to hold over this in order for us to retest this 495 up here. This 495 possibly leading us into this. Honestly, I see a lot of confluence here around this, obviously 500 level. There it is right there. I wasn't even looking at the price, honestly. So around this 500 level. Over this 500 level, we need to see this 503.60 break. This 503.60 is going to be one of the bigger points for us to break through in order for us to continue to the upside, right? Over 503, I'd like to see 505. Shout out to all my New Mexicans. And then I'd like to see 508. Oh, yeah, this 508 area is really big, right? We see some rejection here. We see a bounce here. And then we see a break here, right? So this area right here, this 509 basically, is going to be a big point for us to break. If we could get above that, then I'd like to see 515. Over 515, honestly, I just really like to see all-time highs again. Maybe a break through 520 to this 525 into all-time highs. Now, Shaddy, what if we decide to continue lower? Well, I'm so happy that you asked. So if we break this 480, I definitely see this 477, 476 even back into play, right? As you can see here, big rejection, big break, rejection, and then, all-time highs. So if we end up holding here, then we get that bounce. If not, 476 all the way down to this 472.15. As you could see, again, a multitude of rejections. Tried to turn support, ended up turning support and bouncing crazy. So it's 468 after that, and then after that, I'd like to see 463. This gives us a 20-point range both ways, right? If we get back up to this 503.60 level, then that's a 20-point move from where we're currently sat. If we get a breakdown to this 463 level, that's also a 20-point move from where we're currently sat. So that's realistically what I'd like to see for Meta, as again, we've just continued to make all-time highs nonstop. It's kind of just been it's been a little bit crazy, especially after we get these big dips. We end up getting these massive rips right to the upside. So that's what I'm looking for on Meta, just that 20-point range, all the way up to this 503.60. Again, a close over this 503.60 is incredibly bullish because not only is it a psych level of 500, but again, we've just rejected, and when we broke down hard, rejected, we broke down hard yet again. So just look out for that. So the next obviously we always have to look at some chip, right? It's just a part of this channel at this point. I love trading chips. It's just been a big thing for me the past year, 2 years, as this is what's initially made me the majority of my money, right? So right now, obviously, we're looking at Nvidia. We're looking at Nvidia 878. Honestly, I did not think that we would even see this, this $1,000 mark, but we ended up seeing it, and we saw it pretty quick from October 2022's lows. So right now, we're in a pretty tight flag, right? As you can see, obviously, Friday, March 8th, again, just like we just saw with Facebook, or Meta rather, we had a massive drop, right? This massive drop ended up retesting this quote-unquote trend, and we ended up trend trading for a little bit. We got a big breakup yet again from this, 841 all the way. We got a 100-point move from March 11th to the 13th. Within 2 days, we ended up getting a 100-point move. Again, the premiums are absolutely ridiculous, beyond juiced, just because the market has just been loving chips more than anything. So currently, we're sat at this 881.84. This is what we ended up closing at. Now, again, these are all-time high levels, right? If we look left, there's quite literally nothing. So what would we need to hold in order for us to continue up? Basically, what we'd need to hold is this 865, right? 863, 865 area, in my opinion, is definitely where we need to hold. If we don't end up holding here, then I definitely do think we end up seeing lower, closer to this 831 level, right? This 831 level is going to be a massive thing for us, only because here we saw a big rejection, right? This big rejection ended up, leading into a massive wedge, a descending wedge, and this descending wedge ended up breaking us all the way back up into all-time highs. So this is 823 here. However, we do have a gap from this 828 into this 833. Yeah, 833, 831 level. So we definitely need to hold this 865 level if we don't end up wanting to see these levels down here. If we do end up seeing these levels down here, however, I would like to see 825 hold. 825 has been a big point for us to hold above, right? As you can see, whenever we did end up breaking down, when we did peak all-time highs here, we ended up not even coming down to retest it. So we ended up closing above it. So again, this just being a big psych level for us is a massive thing for Nvidia to hold. Now, a downtrend break out of this this flag would end up giving us, in my opinion, again, all-time highs. I genuinely believe that a close over 900 could definitely give us all-time highs. Why? I'm going to continue to say it. 900 is a psych level. With chips being as hot as they are, we have seen that they will do anything in order to continue going. If we saw a 100-point move in 2 days from March 11th to March 13th, what makes you think that we won't see that again, right? That's kind of like what I put in my head whenever I decide to trade these things, whenever I decide to spend my mortgage on one contract, right? So I think above this 900 level, we definitely should continue to see all-time highs. If not there, right, we break above 900, then I would love to see us reject at around this 912, 910 area. If not there, 915. As you can see here, we look left, we had a lot of support building, and we just got a massive move to the upside. Then here, as you can see, below that support, we ended up rejecting, retesting, and then rejecting all the way back down, right? So that's kind of another big level for us, is this 915 level. If we end up breaking above this 915 level and holding above this 915 level, then we should end up seeing, where should we see? Honestly, I'd like to see this, 928, 930 level. That would make a lot of sense to me. First, we'd need to break this 922.55 to get to that. However, if we do end up breaking above that even, I would like to see this, possibly this 937 first, and then this 942. This 942 should inevitably send us to, 960, all the way into that $1,000 mark. That's just my opinion. Now, for the downside, let's say, again, we break that 865, we go down to this 825, then I'd like to see even lower than that, obviously. I'd love to see this, 800 level be retested. Below that, possibly this 788. As you can see, there's a ton of confluence here, right? We have a lot of buying pressure here, and then once we break through, some selling, rejection, then once we come back up, there's a lot more buying. So the 780 level is also a point of contention for us if we decide to break down from where we're at currently. I definitely think that this week the market should continue higher. Why? Honestly, I really couldn't tell you my thesis. Just because the market has been cooling off and we have been getting really, really good, healthy, quote unquote, pullbacks, I definitely think that the market can continue to see higher. Again, if we saw a 100-point move within 2 days, I don't want you to think that we can't see that again, because it's entirely a possibility, right? We had CPI this week, and then I believe the week before we had Powell testifying at the Senate. So there's a ton of different variables and factors that lead into these things. However, I definitely think that we can see a 100-point move. Maybe not in 2 days. It might take 3 weeks, right? It might take a week. It might take 10 years. But inevitably, I do end up seeing that 100-point move back to the upside from where we're currently sat, as we are in a very tight flag right now. So that's kind of all that I see for NVIDIA. So next up, we are looking at IWM. IWM, again, I mentioned this 197.12 level a couple weeks back, if not a couple months back at this point, and this level holding ended up sending us, pretty fucking high. So we ended up getting a about 13-point move from this little point here from February 21st at that. So we ended up seeing, again, these are not all-time highs. These are just kind of, levels that we play around in. Nonetheless, we were also trading, just like Netflix, we were also trading within a channel, right? And this channel ended up breaking. We ended up rejecting at a very, very important point for us. And this important point was this 206.38. As you can see, we rejected here. We broke above, rejected. When we broke above, we held, ended up pushing us way higher. And then we ended up, breaking back through, rejecting, all the way down to this 200 level. And again, like I've mentioned in every single other, or rather for every single other chart that we've looked at today, it held its psych level. IWM holding its psych level is, just like any other chart, and just like any other stock. It's really, 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 really important to see strong buyers within these specific areas in order for us to continue to hold, possibly continuing to push to the upside, right? So IWM is going to be a big watch for me this week, as we retested this 200, we held above this 200. If we break down below this 200, guess what level I see? You're never going to guess. I definitely see this 197.12. That's realistically what I'd be looking for IWM, so long as we break down below. Now, if we continue to hold above 200 and we continue to go higher, then here is where we'd need to see a relatively big break, right? As you can see, we got a lot of consolidation within these areas. We got some, big breaks to the upside, some big breaks to the downside, etc. So realistically, I would love to see a break over this 203.30 level potentially. If not there, a little bit before. Yeah, so 203.30, we'll call it. And then all the way up to this 204.03. This 204 level, I definitely would love to see a close back above this. This close back above should take us back to this 205, heading us back up into this 206.38. If we do end up breaking above this 206.38, right? Again, as we've seen a big rejection, we saw some support build, and then we saw more rejections into some downside. If we end up seeing a break back above this level, we would indefinitely need to retest it. And if that retest holds, then I definitely think we end up seeing this 210 level again, and possibly higher, as this level is just a big point of contention for us, a point of confidence, again, if you will. So that's kind of what I see for IWM. I'd love to see this 210, above this 210, possibly 215. If not, then I definitely would love to see a bigger move to the downside into this 197.12, and then possibly leading us back down into this 195 area. So gives us a good 10-point range just about, and that's kind of all that I'm looking for with IWM.